again. Time for Chapter 10 of René and Me.
René and Me by George East. Read by Eugene Fraser.
It's not a good time for René to call. Donella, who I initially mistake for the grey lady, has tiptoed into the darkened room to say our estate manager is here and the stove ready for collection. We must, he says, go now, lest it be lost to another anxious buyer. Still comatose from my encounter with Mr. Morris's wardrobe, I am helped to dress and stagger into the yard, where René, an unknown accomplice, and a very noisy tractor await. I ask him to turn off the flashing light and climb in the cab. On board, and bucketing on our way through the night, I recover sufficiently to ask sulkily why it's so important we pick up the stove at dead of night. My companion answers only half sarcastically that his mobilette not being quite up to the task, the tractor is the only available and suitable vehicle, and it's booked for a session in a chicory field in the morning. Besides, the roads are clearer at this time. While the first reason holds water, I wonder how the one car a week likely to appear in the lane would pose a problem. But I'm too ill to start an argument. I can still taste the mushroom calva, and concentrate on gulping down the sweet night air and keeping my seat behind the driver's cab. At last we turn off the lane and lurch to a stop on an even more potholed track. I fall from the grunting tractor as René takes a torch and disappears into the darkness. A little while later he returns and silently beckons us to follow. We must, he cautions in a stage whisper, be as quiet as the night, as we don't wish to disturb the pregnant donkey in the ruined barn which looms up beside us. I consider questioning this out-of-character consideration for animals of the field, but tiptoe on and fall over a piece of the stove which is holding the door to the barn shut. Inside, the torchlight illuminates our goal. It's certainly an impressive sight. Displayed to best advantage on a pedestal of concrete building blocks, the wrought-iron poêle appears almost as big as Mr. Morris's magic wardrobe, and every bit as decorative with its engravings, relief scrolls, and curlicues. Presently it's being used as a chicken coop, and René quickly evicts the two incumbents by grasping their beaks and holding them firmly beneath one arm. Obviously he is still concerned about the pregnant donkey's uninterrupted slumber. It's left to me and my mystery companion to wrestle the giant stove from its pedestal and roll it to the tractor on some convenient lengths of metal piping, whilst René attends to his chicken nursing. This done, we collect the doors, grating, and other attachments from in and around the barn, heave the stove onto the trailer, and depart, with René admonishing the driver sharply to keep the revs low. As we near the end of the track, I ask why I was not required to pay the owner before taking the goods, a usually strictly observed Cotentinese tradition. It would not be fair to disturb him on such a small matter, he explains, as if to a child, and I should know by now that all good farmers are soundly asleep at this late hour. I can settle for the stove when we arrive back at the mill, and he will pass the money on in the morning. We rejoin the lane, and the tractor roars up the incline, as I fancy I hear a dog bark in the distance, followed by an angry shout. René says that I am mistaken. It is nothing but a fox, who, as everyone knows, does his best business at night. April the 17th. The fridge being empty, I breakfast off the remnants of last night's pot-au-feu and some bread stolen from the bird table in the yard. As I dine alone, the ship's bell on the gatepost signals the arrival of the mayor, and I usher him in after his usual polite protestations about the condition of his boots and the early hour of the day. Of all the men I have come to know across the years, John Chevalier is one of the most thoroughly decent, gentle, and content. His philosophy is as simple as it is wise, and he is greatly respected throughout the area for the quiet concern with which he fulfills his self-imposed obligations to the community and his small part of France. He has plainly learned the value and spiritual rewards of cherishing what he has rather than looking for more. He has his wife, his faith, his duty, and his home, 6 Charolais steers, and a life of dignity and fulfilment. Devoted to the commune and the continuance of its way of life, he spends more time at the tiny mairie at Neyu than at his farmhouse in the hamlet of Le Eke. Amongst a sea of paperwork and petty squabbling, he is an island of calm at the heart of the village. Each weekday afternoon at 3, he dons the mayoral suit with flared trousers, bought to celebrate the birth of his son, and takes his seat at the desk in front of the crossed flags of Normandy and France. For the next 2 hours, he will deal with a steady stream of villagers as he dispenses justice and practical advice, and strives to make sense of the latest European directive concerning the banning of dumping rubbish at village rubbish tips. He is transparently in love with his wife, his work, and his life. He is a happy man, and far richer in spirit than the most successful Parisian bureaucrat. April the 20th. René says he's found us a long-term tenant for the farmhouse. He has been approached by a most respectable friend currently living in a nearby village who has urgent need of new accommodation for himself and family of 9. The man is a good worker and is free to tend the land part-time under our estate manager's supervision. He will not require wages, but will expect to occupy the farmhouse within the normal tied cottage arrangements, which ensure free lifetime tenure. A further bonus is that our telephone will not be used, as the family knows no other customers of French Telecom, and the heating and hot water fuel bill should be low, as they are a hardy bunch and do not bathe obsessively. I promised to discuss the proposition with my wife, and briefly do. Following her instructions to the letter, I return to his mobile home and politely but firmly reject my friend's proposal. He is obviously not happy about our rebuttal, and I suspect that money would have changed hands if the deal had gone ahead, even though we would have seen none of it. Back at the farmhouse, I find my wife thumbing through the telephone numbers of all the English settlers in the area so that she can determine who has recently split with whom, and will therefore be looking for a reasonably priced roof above their heads. May the 15th. John and Solange Chevalier appear at the kitchen door to say that they've just moved their steers into the clearing in the scrubland alongside the copse. I immediately suspect a more formal reason for the visit, as both are in their Sunday-best clothes. When John accepts a small glass of whisky, I am even more suspicious. After a long conversation about the condition of the fields, hedges and gates, and his fond memories of Alpous over the past 30 years, my friend announces that he has an important announcement to make. He is to retire this Christmas, after almost 65 years at his farm in Le Eke. He and Solange will take a small town cottage next to the fire station in Saint-Sauveur, and have just bought a new car to visit all the places they have never had the time and freedom to see. It will be a wrench to leave the home where their children grew up, but it is compulsory to retire from farming at his age. Their son has a good, clean job in the town, and no wish to continue in the family tradition, so the rented farmhouse will go to someone else. He will miss Alpous, and will, if I wish, help find a new tenant who will take good care of the land. He will be happy to have more free time, but will miss the feel of the earth through his hands and under his feet. I ask them to wait for a moment to go upstairs to my study. There I take a piece of my headed notepaper, write upon it, and add a first-class stamp. Returning to the kitchen, I ask them both to sign it. The document, I explain, negates our former arrangements, and is a contract for life, giving them full, free, and exclusive use of the 2 main fields. John may wish to start a small orchard, or to grow some fine vegetables. He may prefer just to know that the land is there, if and when he wishes to use it. I would be honoured, I say, if he will visit us often, and perhaps teach me how to live with and use the land a 1,000th as well as he has for the past decades. He looks at the paper for a long moment, then gruffly clears his throat and rubs a hand across his eyes. For all the difficulties in language we have faced over the past years, we are now both, I think, in total accord. After politely refusing to take another small whisky, John invites me to inspect their new car. We walk out, and I admire the small, bright red saloon. It is, says the mayor, the first new car they have owned. With care, it should last the rest of their lives. As we talk, he mentions that his retirement will give him more time to attend to his duties as guardian of the patent orchard, and that he is looking for a suitably impressive boulder to act as a memorial stone there. I say I will ask our builders merchants in Cherbourg if they can help. We shake hands for the third time, and I stand and wave as John carefully pulls out of the yard and heads off in the direction of Lurquet, then go to pour myself a large scotch and ponder on the news. I feel somehow uneasy after our meeting. The mayor and his wife have been a constant and important factor in our lives since we bought Le Pouce, and I find the thought of their leaving unsettling. Perhaps I should be more like the people of the area and accept life, death, and change as an inevitable part of nature. June the 13th. Rolling down the track after a shopping expedition at Saint-Sauveur, we're pleased to see that René has made a start on a terrace in front of the mill. He has already staked out the area to be concreted, and introduces me to a friend and his wheelbarrow. Eric, René tells us, is the star football player for AFC Negreville, but is otherwise temporarily unemployed and homeless, so is moving in with our estate manager till he can be found new lodgings. Though without a home, Eric owns a metal disc grass cutter, which makes him a man of some substance. He will clear the farmhouse garden in a trice, and his rates are most reasonable. Other important events have developed, and René has a favour to ask. A relative of Christian the goat is to be married, and the couple needs somewhere to spend their wedding night. There's no suitably romantic room for their nuptials in the immediate area, and the hotel at Brickbeck charges a fortune for a night in the bed which Queen Victoria allegedly used. All the village knows about the lace-trimmed marriage bed in the guest bedroom at Le Pouce, and we would win many friends if we would allow the young couple to spend their first night together there. We also owe Christian a favour in return for allowing his goats to keep our scrubland in check. René will see to all the arrangements, and we will hardly know they have been there. July the 16th. Summer is truly here, and it is very hot. My wife is most concerned that the fish will be feeling uncomfortable, so I've been delegated to oxygenate the water in the big pond. Lacking an electric agitator as used by the professional trout pond owners, I park the water flea in the middle of the pond, then swirl the oar around as if hand-blending an enormous batter mix. René has assured me that this will introduce bubbles of air into the pond, but it's very hard work, and I become giddy as the boat reacts to my eccentric paddling and spins round on its axis. My new friend Douglas the dragonfly is fascinated and hasn't left my side, and the frog troop have reached hysteria pitch. My reverie in company with Douglas is disturbed by 3 small boys with large fishing rods. They ask me how the trout are biting, and I ask them why they wish to know. They explain that, as season ticket holders to the pond, they wish to complain to the management, that is, Mr. Ribet, about understocking. It's been a long time since they caught anything except the occasional gardon, a species which, of course, are virtually uneatable. I apologize for the poor sport and promise to speak to my estate manager about upping the fish quota.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that chapter of René and Me, and that you join us again for the next one. See you soon.
René and Me. Written by George East and read by Eugene Fraser.